Once you see the record.
Yep, good to go.
Hi everybody, my name is Mark Kimber. I'm the Executive Officer of the Riverside Business Chamber. I'd like to welcome all members and guests to our inaugural virtual business after hours event using the Lifesize video conferencing app. Special thanks to Robert and Cedar from Lifesize. Lifesize is the anytime, anywhere video conferencing app where you can easily start, join a chat, meeting from your laptop, tablet or phone. It has 4K screen sharing, 300-way video calls, meetings encrypted by default, stream and record any meeting, and broadcast live events for up to 10,000 concurrent viewers. Thanks to our support partners, City of Ryde, BusyNet, and Max My Profit Ryde, and thank you to our patron member ServeCorp. In these challenging and fast-changing times, I invite all members to regularly check out our website for our upcoming events and help content to assist businesses in maximising their online content. If you have not recently visited RBC's homepage or our news page, I'd like to point out we have now incorporated links to LinkedIn, YouTube, and links to the news feeds of TWT and the Northern District Times. I'd now like to introduce tonight's host, Mr. Tony Aboud, the President of the Riverside Business Chamber. Tony.
Thank you, Mark, and welcome all to our first virtual Business After Hours meeting. And I think it's something that we're going to have to get used to over the next at least 2 or 3 months. I'd like to firstly acknowledge our Level 1 members, who are our sponsors, and we have Sabrina with us, Achieve Australia, New Horizons, North Ryde RSL, Optus, the Ranch and the Royal Rehab. I'd also like to acknowledge a Level 2 member, Richard Price, from the Sydney Sports Management Group. Now, I just want to share with you what we're doing tonight. We're going to, obviously this is our first time in this format. What we want to do is we'd like to go through some chamber business review as we normally do. Tonight we've got a special guest who's crossing live from Singapore, gentleman Chris Mullins, and we're going to have a chat with him about Singapore. And one of the reasons we're doing this is because we're socially distancing. Doesn't mean we have to be further apart from each other. In fact, we can be closer to each other. And I think our mantra here at Riverside Business Chamber is, whilst we might be socially distant, there's no reason why we can't be closer to each other. Now, I'd like to share with you what some of our strategies on your behalf over the next few months are going to be. Because we want to focus on you as our members and we want to make sure that we're supporting you in these difficult times, the first thing we wanted to do is we wanted you to share with us a video about your business. We want to know who you are. We want to know what you do. Most importantly, we want to know why someone should do business with you. We want you to provide that to us. Then we intend to actually conduct an interview with you and then leave that collateral, your video and the interview to us, and we're going to share that with all the other members, and we're going to share it through all the various platforms because our focus at the moment is to showcase you and what you do and who you are and why you do it. Now, apart from, we're also working with the City of Ryde, who are putting together a business support program. In that business support program, there's already 5 modules that have already been prepared. There's 3 or 4 more modules that are going to be added to our business support program. We're actually going to launch that to you, everyone out in the business world, sometime at the end of April. Now, you can leverage the information within those programs. There's a lot of relevant information, particularly relevant for doing business type of environment that all of us have experienced prior to now. So we're doing that in conjunction with the City of Ryde and a lot of other local members. And you'll see many of our members, many of your colleagues are actually going to be contributing to that support program. And in fact, if you've got a story that you would like to sort of participate in, you need to speak to me or any of the team on the executive, because we can say, well, your topic is relevant, it's relevant to the rest of the members, and it's something that we can do to showcase you and your business. Now, some of the things that we've been sort of talking about in the background on your behalf is we all know the way of the world has changed. We all know that the way we do things has got to change as well. The world is different, so we've got to be different. Now, we all also know that this is short term. This is not with us forever. So we've got to be strategically placed so that when this thing is over, we've got to be ready to move forward in our respective businesses. We were just earlier that what we all really need to do is to be ahead of the curve. So once this is over, we're not going to sit back and be reactive and say, okay, it's over, let's get back into it. If you do that, you're too late. We can be ahead of the curve, and some of the initiatives that we're looking to put together on your behalf will potentially help you do that. A couple of other bits of news, if you like. From a council point of view, a lot of you may not know, it appears that the council elections that were due to be held in September of this year have now been deferred for at least 1 year, potentially 2 years. So they've been deferred. Now, that has ramifications to us in the sense that we're not going to get a change of governance at the local level. We're going to have the same council for at least another 12 months. Now, the good thing about that is there's a sense of continuity, which is very, very important in disruptive times. When you're in the middle of disruptive times, the more stability you have in other areas, the better. So it's a very good thing, in our opinion, that council is going to be with us for another 12 months so that there's some degree of continuity. Now, I said earlier that we're going to cross to Singapore. Now, before we cross to Singapore, I'm going to ask one of our members. She's actually on the executive, and for those of you who are at our meeting in February, she hosted our meeting for the theme was Women in Business, and that's Sabrina Byrne. Now, Sabrina is involved with Surfcorp, who is one of our sponsors. Sabrina, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Sabrina, can I ask you a question? We know we're going to cross to Singapore in a few minutes, but Surfcorp has an office in Singapore. In fact, Surfcorp has offices all over the world. Can you share with us what the makeup of the office in Singapore is and how that office can be of use to our members in their various fields?
Of course. So we actually have 4 locations in Singapore for Surfcorp, and that's out of our whole portfolio of 160 plus locations globally. And what they can actually give you and your business is a global footprint. So if you have clients or you're looking for business in Singapore, you can actually set yourself up with a virtual office there for as little as $200 a month. So especially at the moment when everyone is looking to go online and our borders are shut from traveling around, you can actually connect with clients all over the world just by having something as simple as a virtual office to use and connect with clients over there through either a video call or actually setting up an office there and setting up an office here as well. And all of our members actually have access to 25% off any virtual office globally. So if you're looking to expand your global footprint, this is an easy way of doing that.
And I know we're focusing on Singapore, but you've got offices all over the world, haven't you?
Yes, we definitely do. And they're all in known buildings around the world as well. So one thing with Singapore is that we do actually have a really beautiful location at Marina Bay Sands and 6 Battery Road. And we also have the location that looks right over FW1 when that happens later on the year.
Perfect. Thanks, Sabrina. One of the reasons why we decided to sort of do a live cross across to Singapore today. We were also potentially going to do a live cross to Dubai as well. Not to do that. The reason being is because a lot of people don't know, but the World Expo was going to be held in Dubai later this year, commencing in October. Because of COVID-19, it's actually been deferred for 12 months. So the World Expo is not going to happen now till 2021. The World Expo is going to last for 6 months in Dubai. And we've already been in touch with the Australian contingent because there's over about, I think it's 190 odd countries that are showcasing at the World Expo. And the Australian Pavilion, we've spoken to the people on behalf of the Australian government who are showcasing at the Expo. There's a different theme at the Australian Pavilion each month of those 6 months. So, for example, 1 month the theme might be agriculture, 1 month might be tourism, might be trade, and so on. We were crossing to Dubai, but now that the expo has been deferred for 12 months, we thought we'd leave that to another event. But you should all be aware of that. Now, as I said earlier, the world's changed. Because the world's changed, we have to change. One of the purposes of doing this live cross today is to demonstrate to you that you don't need to be on a plane to enact business. And I see we've got Chris Mullins, who's now come on live. Is that correct? Hello, Chris.
Yes, hello. Nice to see you. I'm over in Singapore.
Yes, welcome. Thank you for joining us here at the Riverside Business Chamber tonight. Now, Andrew Hill has told us quite a lot about you. Can I just introduce you, I suppose? Chris Mullins, you're the CEO of MVP, which is Mind, Body and Passion Sports. Is that correct?
That's correct,
And
yes, yeah.
Yes. Now, maybe if you could just, before we go any further, tell us a little bit about you and what that involves and how you ended up in Singapore in the first place.
Yeah, look, I'll try and make it as quick as I can. I've been here for 20 years, actually. This is the 21st year. I originally came here to visit my sister, actually, that was working in Singapore. She's a horse trainer. She was the first female jockey in Australia, actually. She came here. She had cancer, and she came here because of the warm weather. So, pretty close family. So I came to visit. And she got involved in the sports area over here, obviously quite extensively. And through that, I'd been involved in sports and business quite a bit. Decided to come and visit, obviously. And when I came here, I really saw a need for trying to put a balance with what we understand in our normal lives in Australia. They seem to be lacking it quite a lot in Singapore. It's very academic at the time. So I got enticed to come back here and open up a business, which I did. Gay, my sister, actually went back to Australia about 6 months later. And I ended up staying here because of a few promises that I'd made. So I've been here ever since. Opened up a company called Mind, Body and Passion.
What does that actually do?
Yeah, we do sports education. So my background is I worked in a bank for quite a while. I've had a few different jobs. I worked engineering with the government, the Sydney Water Board for a little while, and I made it quite high up the ladder there into the project management, hydrography, and specialised jobs. So I travelled a lot through the state and in Victoria before that. But I love the sports, and I did a lot of that on the side and ended up doing a lot of tutoring with the business people within our units as well. And we had quite an increase in productivity through that. There's a few examples of that. So when I came to, I ended up resigning pretty young, and I ended up doing full-time coaching just before I came to Singapore. So I had a change in lifestyle. I was living on a farm, putting together a business management course for improving productivity through sports. And it seemed to fit in quite well when I came to Singapore because they were looking for something like that. Since arriving here, they've improved quite a lot with their understanding of sports and also their reach towards improving the balance of lifestyle. But in particular, I've found that the China marketplace invited me across, and we made great inroads there. In fact, we were given a global MOU to work with their education system to try and implement it into the school systems totally.
Right.
A way of complementing emotional learning with academic learning. So that's where we are at the moment. Yeah.
So we're going to talk about an event in September, but before we do that, on behalf of our members, what do you think is the sort of propensity to do business in Singapore or in sort of Asia, but through Singapore? Do you think there's good opportunities to do that?
Yeah, definitely. It's I mean, when I first came here, I was a bit offended that they'd never heard of Australia. Most of the population, apart from Perth, going on holidays, and I being coming from country Victoria, I was a little bit put out that Australia wasn't sitting on top of the pile for all their discussion. But I quickly learned that it's a big world, and this seems to be the meeting of the East and the West, from what I can see. I've made some extremely good contacts globally, international contacts, mainly business, because I'm sitting right in the middle of the CBD in the financial centre. So tennis is a very, well, sports generally is a very good way of interacting, and tennis seems to be a good time frame to get the people's attention and listen to them. And they've most of them have come back. Most of the senior business people have come back, and politicians that I've met have come back with the thinking that there's a lot of synergies between sports and business. So it's quite encouraging. In particular, in China, they're very hell-bent on including sports in the curriculum so that it balances out the academic thinking, especially with the way that emotional learning can come through sports. So they're really focusing on the sports at the moment.
So
and they're doing that in Southeast Asia. Sorry.
So they're looking at sports not only from the physicality, but also mental health and things like that?
Definitely, definitely.
So for our members, if anyone's got a sport portfolio, if you like, there's opportunities there. What about in education?
Definitely in the education, and as I think we all realise, and it's been highlighted even more since the coronavirus, education's changing significantly, and I think here they're trying to get right on top of the what's happening with it, with the IT and all the latest technology. It seems to be more now about mentoring than it is about instruction, and they've got so many references now. I think what they're looking for is to get the best quality information out to everybody in a manageable fashion, which is obviously going to be the internet. But I think that opens the doors for many different business ventures and cooperations. Definitely, we can't get away from teaching.
Yeah. So apart from education, sports education, mentoring, you mentioned technology. What other sort of industries, to your knowledge, there's a propensity for sort of interaction or trade?
Yeah, well, Singapore, of course, is the second largest hub for trade in the world. So a number of the countries around the world set their head office up here. The financial sector is rife here for those that are not aware. It's one of their main areas. So it's the trade, it's the ports, and also import export, and also the financial sector. And that's not going to change really. Probably the way they do business will, but I think they'll still have their headquarters based here because they interact directly, quite seamlessly with China and also with the US. And the Southeast Asian countries around them are very interactive here. So it's
So you're saying if any of our members want to trade into China, into the US or Southeast Asia, Singapore is the gateway?
I would say even more than Hong Kong now, definitely. A lot of the Hong Kong businesses have moved to Singapore with
Right.
with the trouble in China, with Hong Kong over the last 12 months in particular. And even the financial businesses of the Swiss banks have come here quite a lot. A lot of the banks from around the world now are placing themselves here.
Right.
It seems to be an epicenter where they feel, I think the East feels pretty safe from the West and the West feels pretty safe from the East. And they do it very well here. So definitely
Well,
business as
Singapore,
headquarters, it's ideal.
Singapore has a very good reputation as almost being a neutral country, a safe country, a well-managed country, well-governed, very. Let's talk about this event in September. Tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. Well, we've got the Formula One. For those of you that are not aware, it's a night race. They run it in September. I'm hoping that it'll still run this year. Obviously, we're not sure what's happening with the virus, but I'm hoping that everything settles down in the next 2 months. So we're looking at doing an expression of interest this year to share the platform, in particular for business and sports interactions. And because I'm from Australia, I think it's a very good positioning for us to do that from our site. So we're over the top of the fastest and longest straight on the track. So it's not commercialized. We haven't got direct links in with the Formula One, and we tend to be in a perfect position. We did run a major event here with the Macquarie Bank, and we had up to 700 people in 2008. We ran the Ball Kid trials to go to the Australian Open as a precursor as well. That was extremely popular. But I got approached by a number of different event companies, but they're all international. I'm pretty loyal to Australia, I think. And
Good on you.
And I didn't like the feel of it. It was basically to just come in and make it an event site rather than an interactive tennis site. So I've been pretty protective. I've had the site since I came to Singapore, actually. And I've created good links with the different businesses, and I was lucky enough to be on a couple of the panels with the business decision makers earlier when Lee Kuan Yew was still alive. So we've had a good reputation, but I haven't really, although I'm a member of the Australian Chamber of Commerce here as well, MVP Sports is, and I do deal with a few of the business people from Australia. Not as many as I'd like to over the years, actually, but it seems more with the Chinese and with the Americans. But I'd like to create those links and maybe even enhance an ability for people to meet some of the ones that are here, because they interact around the world quite prominently here. Everybody travels for work here. They're all going in and out.
So you're suggesting that we all converge onto Singapore on the 18th to the 20th when the Grand Prix is on, maybe the week before or the week after, and we all get together?
Well, I think during the week, as I've spoken to Andrew about it, he's obviously quite linked with the business forum there. I think it's just a perfect opportunity since they've got the Formula One here and it's an international event. In fact, one of their most popular races. People from all around the world are here. Business interactions are happening everywhere. It all happens at a very high level usually. And I like the idea, and so do a lot of the ones that I've met over the years. They like the idea of that more of a laid-back, relaxed approach, but we happen to be sitting on one of the best venues, actually, in the whole site.
Yes.
And we are a private site, so they can't block our views. We've got about 500 metres each way. But I don't want to be banging the drum and saying we're going to be a Formula One event site. So I think that'll damage our ability to do what we've been trying to do for 20 years.
Sure. Okay, so I'll leave it to Andrew and yourself to sort of structure a proposal that we can put to our members. but
For
already
sure.
you've already identified some key points as to why we should be there in terms of not only experience in the event, experience in Singapore, but there's the opportunity for networking at a fairly high level, but in a fairly relaxed way.
I think so, yeah, and I think that Australian approach. To be honest, I didn't get into the sense of we had most of the major decision makers here during 2008. They came to our site just standing on a tennis court, but a great view, and they interacted very relaxed with a few tables around, having their drinks poured and free flow. I heard them on the phones talking to each other, and the numbers just got bigger and bigger. And they had
Yes.
great places to go to all around the track. And I heard them saying, this is the best place to be for the whole weekend. But which scared me a bit because I thought they'd take it off me.
Yeah.
But
Let me
got
say, I was coincidentally at the Singapore Grand Prix 2 years ago.
Okay.
It was an amazing event. It's an amazing city. I find that the people there are very welcoming, very courteous, and they're happy for you to be there. They're actually happy for you to be there.
They are. They are. They're used to having. I mean, their whole economy runs on tourism. Although in the background they make most of their money, I think, out of the ports and out of the financial sector. The people on the ground, as far as they're concerned, they've had a lot of foreigners in here. I think they've got less than 2 million people, less than 2 million people that are actually Singaporeans, and it's nearly 6 million now. So they're very used to, and it's grown considerably in the last 10 years. When I first came, it had less than 2 million people, and they've got up to 6 now. It still runs. It's very functional, as you would have realised when you were here. Everything works.
Yeah, and that's the key point. Everything works. They're very well organised. They're very clean. They're very structured. And as I said, great service and courteous. It sounds like to me it's a really good opportunity not only to participate in an event, but the event becomes a side issue because the real issue is the opportunity to network.
I think so.
There's a lot of businesses in Australia and a lot of areas of expertise through our members where, it would be a natural progression to take it globally.
Definitely.
It'd be a win-win both ways.
I think so, yeah. Like I interact with people from all around the world the last 20 years, and there's absolutely no doubt. I mean, we can pick the difference between the city people and the country people in Australia, even from the Queenslanders and the New South Welshmen and Victorians. We can pick it, right? But here, it's amazing. For me, it's become very simple to pick where they come from their different countries and the different personality types. I think the Australians, we don't see enough of it, actually. It's dominated by the Americans and the English.
And when you think about it, we're only, about 7 hours away? Or
well, only 4 hours from Perth, actually, from 4 hours from Perth to here. But Melbourne's 8 hours, 7.5, 8 hours from Melbourne, similar from Sydney.
From Sydney.
But it's not much these days.
Yeah, that's fairly close compared to going to Europe or London or America.
Yeah. And for an event like...
I share your optimism that I think we should be all okay by September.
I hope so. So what I've got in mind is to put a website up in the near the end of May, the last week in May, where we'll, and between that's why I wanted you guys to have a head start before we let people know exactly what we're doing here everywhere. You got the heads up with it. I was going to take expressions of interest on who's interested in maybe attending before we actually put out the official
invite.
They can log in and join us here. So I think we're ahead of the game. I've already spoken to the management here about what I've got in mind, so that's all right. Yeah.
And Tony, this is Andrew from outside. Hello, Chris. We've organised email contact for you. And we were just talking with Sabrina from Surf Corp, and she's got some great opportunities at the Marina Bay Sands for any of the members to have a showcase of Singapore.
For sure, yeah. Yeah, we, as I said, we're right in the centre of everything here. We're on the back straight, so those that are interested in the race are right in the middle of or on the longest portion of the fastest straight. But also, we're also away from the main area enough to be able to experience the rest of Singapore as well. So, yeah,
it sounds like you're perfectly located. But I think as important as the location is, I think the opportunity to network and all be together.
I think so, yeah.
And that's where the real benefit comes in.
Yeah.
Look, sorry, go on.
If even if you wanted to, if people want to contact me on the email that Andrew's giving, which is just chris@mbpsports.com, and if they indicate the types of people they'd like to try to meet up with, I might even be able to help with that as well. Of course, try and do what we can. But
okay, because we intend to do a bit off the back of your very kind sort of offer or proposal. We're certainly going to sort of work it. We're going to actually go to our members and say, there's an opportunity here. Tell us what your service is. Tell us what you'd like to see as an outcome. We'll put that to you. And then you can turn around and say, well, if they come on that week or that weekend, there's an opportunity for a range of introduction.
Yep, no problems. Yeah, happy to help. Yeah.
All right. Do anyone else who's live with us have any other questions for Chris at this stage? Because I don't know, how's our timing going?
We've got 4 minutes until we go to our main one. But for Chris again, Mark Kimber, who's our executive officer, has already got his ticket for Singapore, and so have I. So there's two, and being very optimistic.
And I'll be here, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think last year, as you know, Andrew participated in 2 China trips, and those were reasonably successful. So I'm looking forward that this one will be just as successful, if not more, because this time we've got an Aussie on the ground, and you can't beat that. So that's great. Yeah. Has anyone got any other questions for Chris before we sign off?
Chris, Ivan Radovic, I'm a commercial finance broker and been in banking for 40 plus years. Look, I'd be interested in using the email to have some dialogue with you in terms of business opportunities, business relationships out of Singapore and Australia, and building those relationships with a view to funding some of those businesses in terms of their business needs. So,
for sure.
Very interesting listening to you tonight.
Yeah, no problem.
You never know, you might get me over there.
Sorry, mate?
You never know, you might get me over there. I'm just a bit mindful of this COVID-19 virus, but if we can get over this with some sense of normality...
It's terrible, isn't it? Yeah.
I'd certainly love to get over there.
Yeah, we've done a pretty good job over here at the moment, I think, but it's scary.
Yeah, I was about to ask. The word on the street here is that Singapore has well and truly contained it. Is that correct?
It is. I think we had the SARS. I was here during SARS as well, and they did that very well. It was like very orderly. Everybody did exactly what they were told when they were told, and it worked. I think the same this time. They're actually closing everything down tomorrow. So we're lucky to have the call today from here.
Right.
So everything except essential services, because they've had a slight increase in the spread of the virus here, which hasn't come from overseas. So they're just a little bit concerned. Nothing near the numbers that they're having globally, but definitely it's a bit scary.
Okay.
But, yeah.
And can I just...
Got about a minute to go, guys.
Okay, finally, can I just introduce Sabrina, who's involved with Surf Corp, Sabrina, do you want to talk to Chris about Surf Corp in Singapore, and he might be aware of it or may not be aware of it?
Well, Chris, are you aware of Surf Corp in Singapore at all?
I am aware of it, yeah. I have heard of it, but I haven't had dealings with Surf Corp.
Okay, well, I definitely invite you to come up and see our Marina Bay Sands location.
Sure.
Something that's actually worked in the past. A lot of attendees to the Grand Prix in Singapore in the past have actually, if they're travelling from overseas, have actually taken up temporary office space there so they can continue working and also continue to network as well, and have a place to actually do business deals with people that they've met, which is actually quite great. And I know that Andrew's been working with the team over there to create a kind of a networking hub over there as well, to give a platform to the attendees of the Formula One later on this year. So I'll definitely get in contact with you after this to talk further on how, you can also potentially assist our members over there, and how our members can hopefully also attend the event and network over there as well. But it is something that we are inviting all RBC members as well to have a place to work from when you're there, but also attend the FW1.
For sure. Sounds good, Sabrina. We've got we'll do that. You'll get the heads up because directly underneath me, the whole floor is Just Co.
Really? Well, there you go.
but of course they're not Australian, so they have to come up.
No, they're definitely not.
But definitely there's plenty of opportunity for that. Yeah.
Well, Chris, can I say on behalf of the Riverside Business Chamber, thank you so much for talking to us. It was a pleasure to meet you.
Good to
and
meet
we
you.
really thank Andrew for introducing us to you. I've got a sense here that this is a start of a very good relationship, but also quite a lucrative opportunity for not only yourself, but all of our members. And we're going to be working towards nurturing that relationship for the benefit of all. So thank you very much, and really and truly look forward to seeing you in September.
Yeah, and good to meet you too, Tony. Look forward to hearing back from each of you, and hopefully we catch you in September. Yeah.
Thanks,
Absolutely.
Chris.
Thank you so much, Chris. Thank you.
Thanks, mate.
Thank you.
Bye for now.
All the best. Cheers.
Back over to Rob, Tony. You've got you're ready for your meeting where you start talking to everyone about Ryde and our update, if you want.
Okay. Well, you there?
We're all here.
All right. We've just finished a live feed to Singapore. Those of you who missed it will be able to see it after this live event on our YouTube channel. And it's part of an idea of what we're doing to foster relationships for our members all over the world. In this case, it's specifically Singapore, and it specifically revolves around the Formula Grand Prix, which happens to be on the 18th and the 20th of September. And all things being equal, that seems to be, it's still going to go ahead. But it's not so much about the Grand Prix. As Chris Mullins, who we were just talking to in Singapore, suggested, he said Singapore is a financial hub. It's a gateway into China, into the USA, and into Southeast Asia. And there's a lot of opportunities, whether it's around sport, education, trade, finance. There's so many opportunities, and he's got the propensity to introduce us to the right people depending on the nature of our business. So that's something that's going to be forthcoming, and we're going to be sort of sharing the opportunity with you as we move forward. Now, as far as Ryde's concerned, Ryde and the city of Ryde is no different than any other city at the moment, and we're going through this COVID-19. You need to be aware that in the last 4 to 6 weeks, through our Vice President, Andrew Hill, we've spent a fair bit of time focusing on Eastwood and supporting the Eastwood businesses. As you know, a lot of the businesses are in Eastwood revolve around food. And a lot of those businesses were severely affected by the COVID-19 virus. And the biggest impact was that people ran away from Eastwood. They were scared that if they did business in Eastwood, they would potentially get the virus. Through Andrew, through work with the various chambers and through work with the City of Ryde, the focus was on saying that Eastwood is safe, Eastwood is clean, and it's okay to do business in Eastwood. And by doing business in Eastwood, that doesn't mean you're going to get the virus. And we've spent a lot of work in the background doing that. Andrew in particular has done a lot of work around that. And that's part of our job of supporting the businesses. Because at the moment, it's the businesses that need to survive, because it's the businesses that employ the people. It's the businesses that, through employment of people and being productive and being profitable, are able to pay taxes. And I know the government is going to do everything in their power to encourage businesses to thrive after this COVID-19 virus, because they're going to need a lot of taxes to pay back all the incentives that they've managed to give out right here, right now. So our focus, as I mentioned earlier before we crossed to Singapore, is to focus on you and to focus on your success and how you change the way you do things, not so much what you do, but the way you do it, how you do it, in response to these changing times. One of the things that we're focusing on is, up until now, there's the concept of mass marketing. There's the concept of, spread your business out as far as and wide as you can. That's changed now, and the focus is very much working with the one you're in front of, and focusing on the one person you're in front of. And once you've concluded business with that person, move on to the next person. And business support program through the City of Ryde that we were talking about before, we're coming up with a whole range of programs to reinforce that style of doing business. I know we've got programs coming up about how to do video conferencing like we are now through Lifesize. We've got programs coming up for you on how to produce videos. We've got programs in terms of leveraging all the business and incentives that are coming from government at all levels, local, state and federal. We've got a whole range of programs how you can maintain your mental health, your physical health, your financial health. These are all the sorts of things that we're going to sort of add value. And sometimes with all these things that are happening out there, it can be very overwhelming. So one of our roles is to try and simplify it for you and give you little modules that you can tap into, particularly the ones that are relevant to you. Normally we give a local update, what's happening with council, what's happening in the area in terms of development, what are some of the programs that's happening. But you can appreciate that a lot of those things are on hold for the time being. One thing that I can tell you is that for the next couple of meetings, they're going to be online meetings. As we said earlier, you can think of it as RBC online. And the May meeting, our focus is going to be on, and the theme of our May meeting is going to be coming out of COVID-19. And we know, right, based on the current information that we have, that it looks like, you read it in the papers, you hear what the government says, it looks like we're going to peak somewhere around mid-April in terms of these new cases. If that's the case, then it's likely that they may start removing restrictions towards the end of May. And if that's the case, as a business, we've got to be strategically ready to take advantage of post-COVID-19. So our focus in early May is to give you a whole pile of initiatives and strategies around this business support program that will help you come out of COVID-19 and be ahead of the curve. Rather than be reactive, be ahead of the curve so that when things start to normalise, you're there at the forefront rather than in the background and chasing business as a lot of times we traditionally do. Now, Andrew, our Vice President, is there anything else that I need to add?
I think it would be great for you to tell this post idea. We've got like Gladysborough, Jacqueline ready for a lunch or a breakfast. If you want to talk on that as well.
Yeah, look, for those, we had the premiere last year and the year before for a breakfast, and then we had her for a business after hours event. She has promised us that she'll come to us later this year for a luncheon, a business luncheon. If you can imagine, she was busy in February with the fires, and she's certainly busy now with COVID-19. But she has promised that she will be visiting us later this year to give us an update and a wrap-up post-COVID-19. But more importantly, to tell us what are a lot of the things that they're doing in the city of Ryde, because we know the state government's got a lot of infrastructure work in place, and it's that infrastructure work that acts as a multiplier in terms of economic activity. And we need that economic activity to maintain employment. We need that economic activity to maintain, businesses, sustain businesses. So she'll be coming along later this year to share that with us. We're still going to the council meetings, the Economic Development Advisory committee meetings. We're still attending those meetings on your behalf, although we're doing them by video conferencing rather than live meetings. There was also going to be in May that council had asked us to host a nighttime economy seminar on the 18th of May. That may now be postponed for a short time because at the moment with COVID-19, there is very little nighttime economy because cafes, restaurants and places to meet are all sort of shut down in the short term. So that's coming because for those of you who know or don't know, Council last year did a nighttime economy study, and the objective of that study was to create more vibrancy, more economy in the nighttime. So particularly in areas such as West Macquarie Park, Gladesville, they wanted to activate the space at night so people could come out, they could socialise, they could go to eateries, they can go places to meet. Now, they did the study last year, and the purpose of this conference in May, which the Riverside Business Chamber was hosting on behalf of Council, was for them to put that study in place and start creating some of these activities that would create the nighttime economy. Likewise, we're still going to the Macquarie Park Forum panel on behalf of the Business Chamber, and we do that, and that's an advisory committee that's specifically around things to do with Macquarie Park. You as members of the Riverside Business Chamber are represented on that advisory committee. We go on your behalf and we give back to council as to things to do with Macquarie Park. In the same way with the Economic Development Advisory Committee, we give advice to council on all things economic in the city of Ryde. The other big thing that's potentially going to happen in Ryde is the redevelopment of the Civic Centre. We don't know where that's up to at the moment. The last information we were given was that it's gone out to tender. And at the moment, it looks like it's going to cost something around $119, $120 million to rebuild that centre. And what they're proposing is an auditorium, an arts or functions. They're proposing new council chambers, and they're proposing a building of 5,000 square metres as office space for the that's currently in tender stage, but we don't know whether it's going to go ahead or not. I think that's been pushed to one side again because of the focus on the COVID-19 virus. But that basically summarises everything that's happening to date. You know, there'll be more things happening. Get ready, after this COVID-19, we're going to all be so busy. There's going to be so much there are going to be so many things happening because we're all going to be playing catch up. Everyone's going to be working at full production because there's going to be an element of catch up. And I'm quite encouraged. You know, I see this COVID-19, I think of it in two ways. I think of COVID-19 as a tragedy for the poor people who got it, particularly those who've passed away. But I also see COVID-19 as an opportunity for what happens to it. And that's what we need to focus on as local businesses. And after today, potentially global businesses. So anything else from my team before we switch off?
Yeah, just one other thing. With all this free time we have, Tony, instead of working in the business, we can work on the business and actually put some time and effort into some promotion videos. I know if you send that to us at Riverside, Sabrina is our marketing media person, and that'll go out through our social media. I'll be doing some work on it through YouTube, and we'd love to share your story with the rest of Ryde. This is in conjunction with Jan from the Ryde Council and Stefan, and we're also trying to help our media people, media members who might like to do an upskill of a top video and really promote your business.
Well, I know Jeff Anderson, who's one of our members, is doing a session on creating your own video. He'll be running that as part of the business support program. And just to add to what Andrew said, it's not only send us in a video of your business, who you are, what you do, and why we should do business with you, but we're running interviews as well with you. So we're going to run 3 to 5 minute interviews. So, you know, first in, first serve. We intend to go through every one of our members, and we'd like to capture a video and an interview for every one of them. And then, as Andrew said, through Sabrina, we've got all our platforms that we intend to promote that you and your business through all of our platforms, all of our social media platforms, our website, YouTube. And then when we're back to being live, one of the ideas that we've talked about is that later this year or perhaps earlier next year is potentially bring you all together into a local expo of businesses. So that's something that's been sort of forecast later this year or earlier next year. But let's do it digitally first, and then we'll do it as a live expo probably later this year. Anything else from the team?
Sounds good, Tony.
Yeah, it's all good.
All right. All good. Well, I think we're coming towards the end of this particular telecast or program. So firstly, I'd like to thank my team for the support and all the great ideas and for coming together half of our members. So I thank you, because without you, none of this would be happening. I'd like to thank Robert from Lifesize for hosting us today. Thank you, Robert. And I'm sure this app is going to become a lot more prominent over time. And we're certainly going to be using it and promoting it a lot more through our members. And we hopefully will take it globally for you as well. I'd also like Chris Mullins from Singapore, who no doubt we're going to see a lot more of in the coming months and potentially going to use as a conduit for business both ways for our members and coming back into Australia. So we're looking forward to doing a lot of work with Chris coming months. So on that point, I think it's time to sign off for the April Business After Hours. First time ever where we're not sitting there and talking to each other. The only thing I would miss, I can say honestly, is the drink. So I'll now, if I sign off, I'll go and get my own drink. So thank you. And see you again soon.
Thank
Cheers.
you.
See you, Gary.
Nice.
Bye.
See you.
See you, Andrew. Sabrina.